Welcome to the If You Know, You Grow podcast. My name is Chantel Brayley, and I am going to be your host for the next however many minutes. This podcast has been created to help bring you behind the scenes of some incredible brands, hear some incredible stories, and make it so that it is no longer an if you know industry, because now it is all about if you know, you grow. Welcome to the first official episode of If You Know, You Grow, the podcast with myself, Chantel Brayley, your host. So before we get into, all of the fun stuff that I've actually got prepared in this season, because I have actually prepared some of the really fun things, I thought it would be really good for you to get to know me a little bit better in a way that you couldn't already find on LinkedIn. So I'm going to go through 5 core values that I have as a marketer, an entrepreneur, effectively a founder, just somebody who is currently working in your space. And these are things that I have developed through making bad decisions and through investing in myself to really understand who I am as a human being. And I think that that is my secret sauce in the same way that that's going to be your secret sauce. So I do have the notes on my phone. So if I look away to look at them, it's just because I'm still trying to figure out how I want to talk about this. And I think that is the thing about I am building this in public and I'm building this in real life. And I love being on a podcast when I'm the guest. But wow, it's so much harder being the host. And it's so much harder doing it by yourself because I have to riff off of my own personality, which we're getting through. But let's kick off with these 5 core values and let me share them with you. So the first one that I have is don't overcomplicate it or over-engineer it. So one of the things that I've done with so many brands that I work with, and it's actually something I'm really proud of currently at New Harvest Supplements, is I help create a process that will make something scalable. And I know wholeheartedly, and I believe this, that as a creative person, if I didn't have my process, then I would probably fall over. I am so creatively brained that I need process in order to be able to do something methodically. However, I'm a really big believer in I can't just give you a process and expect that process to make sense in your team or make sense in your business. And that's probably not the answer that you want. And there will be a lot of podcast episodes where I want to chat through, ways to build a really fire hype strategy or, ways to build out your influencer program, because those are 2 things that I personally feel I do exceptionally well and I have kind of nailed formula on. However, it does not mean that a playbook is going to be able to get you the result that you want. And oftentimes I see businesses that are so process driven and so organized, but it kind of sucks the life out of them. The little bit of craziness and being able to think on your feet and being able to be agile is such an important part of being in a business that is continuously doing something innovative and striving for growth. That doesn't mean you can't have a Mondays board or a Notion or any of those things, because that is something that I'm really big about, having tools to support your process. But you can't over-engineer it and you can't overthink it, because every single campaign that I have been a part of, what has actually made that campaign go from, a great theory to something that is wild is actually that rogue, unplanned element. And I actually want to give you a really fun example of a time that that's happened for me. This is kind of good because I guess I have a lot of examples. I'm trying to think about which one's going to be the most helpful. So the one that I actually want to talk about when I talk about don't over-engineer it. And the irony is this isn't going to sit in the concept of process. This is going to sit in the concept of going against what traditionally would be successful in order to drive something different. And yes, there was still a process behind it. There was a content calendar. There was a schedule of posting, but it was the fact that we did not allow there just to be a formula to decide what we thought was going to be successful that really changed everything. So one of my career milestones at this point, and it's what helped led me into Naked Harvest / New Harvest today, was when Georgie Stevenson announced that she was pregnant. I approached the CEO of Petal and Pup at the time, and I said, I want to do an influencer collection with Georgie. Now, Georgie is a phenomenal human being, but also right now, currently, she's got a huge reach of 400,000 on one platform, a couple under 100,000 on another platform. Like, the data and the engagement are 1,000% there. But at this time, she was I believe probably around the 100 and maybe 30,000 mark. So a good creator, not necessarily somebody that you would instantly think would be doing an influencer collection, because at this time it was still something that was very new to the Australian industry. But the other thing was is she wasn't necessarily known as being a fashion icon or a fashionista despite having good taste. And she also was pregnant, which as a woman, 10,000% I'm going to say that is not criteria that you are looking at when you're thinking about whether or not somebody should be doing something or whether or not it would make sense. But from a fashion perspective, I wanted to challenge the concept of the fact that it wasn't maternity wear, it was bump friendly. And that really completely changed the essence of the entire collection. Now, those are all things that traditionally would not have ticked a box or would have not ticked a process in order to make the collaboration successful. However, the first style sold out within 3.5 minutes. So that is very much something that I will always deem a success. We actually needed to figure out how to rapidly turn the entire site into a site that allowed pre-sale, because it wasn't something that we had factored in, because the velocity of the campaign was incredible. And it was a mixture of the owned audience at Petal and Pop and Georgie's audience actually purchasing and being brought together. So by not following the rules and by not over-engineering the fact that I needed to find a fashion influencer who was in her mid-20s, who had a 10% engagement, I was actually able to create a strategy and find somebody who aligned with more audiences, who was more likable, more approachable, who was more authentic. And we will constantly talk about the concept of being authentic to your audience. That was what was genuinely authentic to the Petal audience at the time. And I'm very lucky that I had a leader who was in full support of it and trusted the fact that I knew the vision. And I have seen many influencer collaborations with product throughout my career not be successful because it was about ticking boxes. And it was about engineering a process as opposed to creating a story, having a vision, and having alignment. So sometimes those intangible things are often the things that will provide the best structure and the best path forward. Number 2, this might actually be controversial when we're just because I'm going from what I've just said to this, and it is not contradictory, but it may sound that way at first. So just hear me out. I need you for the next 5 minutes while I describe this one. The exception cannot be the example. And what I mean by that is we are constantly being served ads and being served strategies and being served the, cold emails from agencies, which by the way, I am very agnostic. I am not everybody needs an agency. I am not everybody needs to bring it in-house. That could be its own episode in itself. But we are often sold that if we follow this process, then we will get this result. And the wild thing is, I think being so embedded in the industry and having these really intimate conversations with founders and with brands, there is not a singular brand out there that I have witnessed that can attribute their growth to a singular channel or a singular strategy or a singular moment in time. Because the thing with these brands is that they nailed their direction and they nailed their vision, and then they literally went guns blazing after exactly what they wanted. And the reason I say that the exception cannot be the example is because I watch people either damage their business or really damage their self-esteem because they don't understand why this particular online course or this particular item is not making their business 7x overnight. And the easiest thing that I can say to that is if it actually was that simple, I would not be sitting here currently recording this podcast. I would be chucking the money into Meta and I would be off somewhere in European summer because I don't like the cold and I don't actually own more than one pair of jeans. If it was that easy, we would all be doing it. So when you get caught up in the concept of, oh, it's so simple, they've done it, so we can do this, or even going after someone who's really good at content and replicating their entire strategy and using that exception as your example and then it not going well for your brand, you cannot, it almost hits in that same vein of comparison is the thief of all joy, because it's really hard to compare yourself to someone when you literally just know their highlight reel. And being behind the scenes working with these businesses, what I can tell you is it's not the singular channel. It's often their team, or it's their founder, or it's the vision, or it's the product. And then the places where I actually wish that we could just give them a process to fix it are often like in their planning or their buying or their like that type of process. It's never in the marketing world, because oh my God, everybody would be doing it if you could just chuck it into Meta or chuck it into Google or chuck it into et cetera. And I just see people damaging their businesses by thinking that, PMAX is the way to the future and I'm just going to chuck it all in here because I've got this one analytical result. And it's really disheartening to know that people will get caught in that noise, because then you think that you failed and you actually didn't fail. You just got sold something and you bought it and it didn't work out in the way that you planned it to. If there was anything that I really wanted you to get from that and that I wanted you to take away from that, because I do think that this concept of the exception being the example is going to be something that I bring up because I'm so passionate about it. It's the fact that what you do need to be focusing on is the brand that you are trying to build and the strategy that you are trying to amplify, as opposed to taking someone's 2 steps to success or 3 steps to success. Because whilst I will have a lot of like numbers of things that I believe, there's not going to be a single one of them where I tell you, if you do this, you get this, because we just don't work in a world that it's that easy. And basically every strategy at this point has to be tailor-made, because only you know your customer, only you know your vision, and you leaning into that is going to be the way that you actually grow your business. Okay, so this next one actually hits really, really close to home. And it's something that I will definitely dive deeper into, but I think is a very aggressive topic to like jump headfirst into. So I'll just kind of skim over the top of it so that we can get used to really getting to know each other. But it is that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and that burnout is literally the ultimate creative killer. I see so many people in this industry, and probably so many people that are currently listening to this, burn themselves out and try to pour from an empty cup. And part of that comes from the basis of the fact that we all have this vision that we are chasing. And especially if you're a millennial, you have been rooted in hustle culture. And I believe in working hard until you get there. But I do think that the concept of hustle culture is unrealistic, and it creates really unhealthy boundaries. And it can kind of allow us to focus on the parts of ourselves that are not going to help us grow. But I've learned the hard way that the worst thing you can do is burn yourself out. And the best thing that you can do is actually make space for the ideas to come from. I have, unfortunately, burnt myself out to the point of physical exhaustion and injury. And none of that was because anybody was forcing me to do it. That was all the little person inside of my brain telling me that I needed to do more, that I wasn't doing good enough, that I just needed to do that extra bit of work those extra bit of hours, that, I just had this busy season. And it wasn't about habits or it wasn't about locking in. It was literally almost like the complete opposite of it. It was having a completely unhealthy obsession. Oh God, I'm just going to say this anyways. And maybe like a little bit of like a praise kink. I don't know. I actually don't know how else to say this. So having maybe a little bit of a praise kink that is completely forced on you by wanting crippling perfectionism. I definitely am somebody who thought that if I was not the absolute best at what I was doing, then I was the worst. And I actually know where this came from. I can give you a little tidbit. See, I ramble. I've already told you this. I can give you a little bit like tidbit about the way that I was raised. So when I was going to school, my grandmother told me that for every A I got $20. If I got a B, I got $10. If I got a C, I got nothing. However, if across my 6 subjects, I could get all A's, the $20 could turn into $50. Now, as somebody who is very material driven and likes nice things and grew up transparently, like below the poverty line in a very bad part of California, could you imagine in 2005 what you could do with $300 a semester? My wardrobe, please. She needed it. This and many other things from, me being younger fueled that crippling perfectionism. So when I say like you cannot pour from an empty cup, if you are a founder that needs to be showing up in your business every day and driving ideas and supporting people and being innovative, if you are not sleeping, resting, creating habits that are going to help support that, you're not going to get there. One of the biggest changes that I've made, which is going to sound counterintuitive, but again, this is like the concept of like locking in versus hustle culture, is I wake up at 4:30 in the morning every day. Why? I wake up at 4:30 in the morning because then I can have 90 minutes before anyone's on the computer to go to the gym, go to the sauna, listen to my podcast, meditate. I have that time because that time is going to set me up for success so that I can pour for the rest of the day. And yes, there are other things that I need to do, but that was like a very small thing that I did to implement that. And I mean, I can do more about chatting about my biohacking and like all of these things that I've come to invest in, but the biggest thing is like you cannot pour from an empty cup. Please don't try to. It'll feel good for a short period of time, but like you'll burn out or you'll miss huge opportunities because you can't see them because your head is not above water. All right, so here is the next one. And I feel like now that I'm getting through them and I'm speaking about them, you can see that I literally am quite rooted in between logical business and mindset. And I very much think that those things need to be deeply rooted within each other. The best business owners and the best business people that I have ever met, men and women, really have a great mindset. Like the ones that don't just like pop up, do something cool, and then disappear. The ones that have longevity in their careers have great mindset. So with this is do not let ego fuel your choices. A lot of us are going to be here because we do like being the center of attention. It is nice to kind of be seen, or because we're comfortable with content or being in front of the camera or any of those things. And when I say ego, I don't mean wanting to be the center of attention. I'm actually really talking about scale, and I'm talking about the decisions that you make, whether it be with the lifestyle that you live outside of work and the way that you fund that with work money, or the alternative, the business decisions that you make because you want to be able to say that we 10x this, 3x this, whatever. Making a decision like that from a place of ego isn't ultimately going to serve you. A really regular conversation that I have with somebody is, well, I really want to scale my business. And I immediately ask them why. And sometimes it will be because I want my brand to be the biggest brand in APAC, or I want my brand to be the biggest brand in the world, or I want Kendall Jenner or Hailey Bieber or whoever to wear my brand. And none of those are bad reasons, right? But what I can say about making decisions from a place of your ego is the fact that those decisions are never going to be made with enough context for it to be a holistic decision. I love having a conversation about a P&L. Because to me, that dictates where we're going. It dictates whether or not you're going to be able to sell your business in 3 to 5 years. And it's something that as a marketer, and I know that I've got a very heavy marketing, very heavy creative audience, you knowing your numbers are huge. So when you are making a decision from often a place of ego, if you don't know your numbers, then you're not going to make the right decision to scale. Because if you want a really profitable business, you can often sometimes do that and have phenomenal cash flow and have a really great lifestyle and live luxuriously for a lot less effort than you can to have a business that you just want to brag about because it costs money to scale. And I'd say that in what I've learned, it is not that hard to get from 2 to 5 mil, but then the 5 mil to the 10 mil is one struggle. And then it kind of goes up in these like interesting increments where you will start having new issues. So it's like, why do you want to be a $15 million company? Is it because you want to grow your brand into this direction? Is it because you want to sell for this amount? Is it because like, what is the why? And if that why is not your ego, then trust the process and trust the direction that you need to go into. But if it's just because you feel like it, well, I'm sure that people will disagree with me on this. I don't think that that is a sound enough place to be making a huge decision. And oftentimes I see it fall apart because it means you're not making a decision that is coming from the right place. So this is the last one I'm going to wrap up with. And I love that none of these things are actually unique to conversations that I would be having every day, because I think that is the purpose of this podcast. Is I want to have a real chat with you in the way that I would have with any of my besties, because you're now my business bestie, right? Yeah, we can say that. You are the sum of your 5 closest people. And that is something that you'll hear on business podcasts. You'll hear it on, Diary of a CEO. You're going to hear it across the board. It is not a concept that I invented, but it is a concept that when I applied that to my life absolutely changed. And I do think that you need your work 5 and your home 5, but what people bring to you and what they are adding to your life and what you are absorbing from them energetically can completely change the way that you are showing up in your personal life and in your business. I have my work five, and for a lot of people, this might be a team conversation. Like, who are the 5 people? Who are the 5 people that are on your bus? When I think about my work five, and I'm actually very lucky, I've got one of my work five here. I have somebody who is always showing up for me and inspiring me and telling me when I'm getting distracted, but really like doing it from a place of love and support, and it's a beautiful thing. But then I also have someone that I can constantly like bounce ideas off of, who is aligned with me in where I want to go, because we don't want to do the same thing, but we want to go to the same place. And that is incredibly powerful. Whereas if I had people in my five, in my work five, who didn't want to go where I wanted to go, it would create a lack of alignment for me. And sometimes it might mean that you maybe don't push hard enough. Sometimes it might mean that you push too hard. Like, this goes back to that hustle culture concept. Like, if you don't want to subscribe to hustle culture, like, as much as I love to say, like, I work hard, play hard, I feel like I now work methodically and purposefully, and I play whenever the fuck I feel like it. And I love that. But that is something that I needed to remove the hustle culture from. And I needed to see the people, my 5 people needed to be people that switched off. I needed my 5 people to be people who called me and, asked me if I'd listen to this new meditation because it was going to change my day. I needed it to be people who were focusing on brands outside of just the brands that I was obsessed with. I needed to find inspiration and motivation and support through that little network of 5, which, I'm very lucky that it's those 5. But think about your team. Your team, if you had to tell me, because you spend 40 hours a week with these people. If you have those 5, or if you're thinking of building those 5, are you happy with that 5 actually being a representation of who you are as a person? And if you say yes, then that is awesome. If you say no, there's layers to this, and I would love to ask, is it because you hired wrong, or because you didn't have the right processes? Because, processes are important in hiring. Or is it because there are gaps in the business that you can't afford to fill yet? Like, those could all be things. But when I think about a team, whether it's 5 or 3 or whatever, you want to be really happy with that sum, because that sum is going to be directly what impacts you as a founder. When I think about my personal life 5, it's also, are these 5 people doing the things in life that I want to be doing? And if I'm going to be playing whenever the fuck I want to play, are they doing the things that I want them to be doing? And are they people who are able to work me and that side of me and cheer me on, and it never become a problem unless I am literally doing harm to myself? And what I mean by that is, if I am adopting the hustle culture and I am burning myself out, are they going to be somebody that holds me accountable to help me help find the balance, and help find the fun, and help find the play? Because that's what I want in my personal 5. And I am so lucky to have 5 people who do not suffer from tall poppy syndrome, who are there inspiring me, despite the fact that I don't know that any of them actually understand what I do. Not because they don't care, but because we do kind of play in this world where, like, I think, if I describe today, they're like, what are you doing today? I'm going to go record some podcasts and have lunch with the people who support me. Like, my day sounds super glamorous, but they're not seeing like the emails and all the other things that kind of come along with it, the strategy, which I love, and I'm here for everything, but like, they're never going to understand my job. So how can they support me? You want that 5 to be those people who are going to inspire you. And I think one thing with Australia, I said tall poppy syndrome, and I think this is where I say I speak in stream of consciousness. So either you might be a little bit neurodivergent, a little spicy, you're along for the ride, or I might really irritate you. Maybe you find it funny, who knows? But tall poppy syndrome is something that is like not in my DNA, which I like. I can be critical when I don't think that someone's going in the right direction, but oftentimes that's because, especially like in this industry, I can be like, ooh, I see so much of me in you, and I don't want you to make that same mistake, because I love mentoring women who are earlier in their careers, because I had really great mentors, but like, really, can you ever have enough? Like, can you ever have enough people who are here to share wisdom? But tall poppy syndrome in Australia is so evident and is so painful. And I am so glad that it does not physically exist in my being. That doesn't mean that I love everything that everybody does, because I'm going to have an opinion. And I will say when I don't agree with something, or say when like, oh, I didn't really like that execution. But it's so interesting to watch, especially as, my career has grown, or as, I think working with a lot of creators, like I see this a lot. Australians can sometimes, and this like really hurts me to say because I love living in Australia, and sometimes women can be the worst at this. They will cheer you on and support you, and you can do well, but don't do that well. Don't go that hard. Don't get that big. And it's just so wild to me. Like I even think about like the little turf wars, because Australia is so small. You're probably a degree of separation from someone that works at a competitor brand, and you want to fiercely protect your thing because, oh my God, what if they copy me? Like there are so many people in this world. There are literally 7 to 8 billion people. Nothing is ever going to be inherently that unique. Just find your customer. They'll find their customer. Everybody can thrive. And often if someone has to directly like duplicate your idea, then like that's actually a bigger problem for them than stealing your idea. I don't know if any of that just made sense. But tall poppy syndrome, like it's such a big thing. I think normally in a work culture, you will not have that because you've hired specifically people who want to be on the same bus or are in the same direction. But I think as somebody who is high performing in work, having your personal life be full of people who will understand the direction that you want to go in and be proud of you. Like my best friend was actually at a wedding in Canberra, and she mentioned my name, and like I don't actually know who this was, but she mentioned my name and someone there knew who I was. I thought that was so cool. This woman has gone to so many events. She has helped me with so many different aspects of my life. And I love that she is so passionately proud of me, but again, probably like doesn't really understand what I do. And I don't expect her to. But like those are the people that you want in your personal life, because I noticed as I made those two shifts, as I made sure that I was working with people that were aligned, and as I made sure that my personal life was full of the people who wanted me to do more and they were down for my ride and they wanted to be on that journey, my life exponentially changed. My behaviors changed, my habits changed, my anxiety levels changed. And like if it doesn't feel good, if it's too hard, if someone isn't there for you, then like, yes, we've got a lot of time in our lives, but like we all live busy lives. So do not invest or so into someone that is not going to do the same back to you, because I guarantee you, if you have not found that person, you will find that person. Maybe you will find that person through one of these episodes, or maybe it will inspire you to find people like that, because I'm going to bring my 5 on here throughout the time, because you are going to see that all the things that I believe and all the things that I have are because I have those people in my corner, and I'm able to learn from them and grow with them and be inspired by them. So again, like as I'm pouring from my cup, they are filling it right back up, and it sits straight back into that value. Okay, so this is the last thing. I'm gonna have my phone out for this because I want to make sure that we chat through this, and I'm gonna start doing this with people who are actually like guests on the show, because I think that will be really fun. But I want to do Smash or Pass. Why? Because I feel like that's so much fun, and I love Smash or Pass. I love little smash cakes on TikTok. Like I find this so much fun. I'm going to myself and also with guests have a Smash or Pass section. So I've got my Smash or Pass, which my beautiful chat GPT Donna has created for me based on the fact that I have trained this girl. She knows me. We are besties at this point, to help provide process so that I can sit in my innovation. But we're going to Smash or Pass. And for those of you who don't know, Smash is basically like, yes, I fuck with it. I'm so excited. Yes, let's do it. And Pass is just like, meh. Sometimes it's like a hard no, and I will give context. But in case you haven't seen the trend, if you're not on TikTok, that is what it means, Smash or Pass. Okay, going in. First thing, marketing related. Influencer whitelisting. So this is paid ads via creator profiles. And whether this is Meta, TikTok, etc. For me, it is a hard smash. In saying that, there needs to be alignment. Are you choosing a creator that actually aligns with your brand? Are you choosing content that feels native to that creator? So again, this kind of comes into that over-engineering concept. Are you over-engineering your brief so that it so clearly looks like something that creator doesn't give a crap about, but they are so happy to take the money from it? That should be a red flag if that actually does happen. But, are you over-engineering it? And are you clear on what your objective is of this? Are you trying to just gain awareness for your brand by whitelisting an ad on TikTok and expanding the reach of that because it's going to go well, so you're almost creating that viral moment? Or alternatively, are you running a longer term campaign with a creator and you are using Meta to retarget that person lower down the funnel with very specific content to your brand? There are many ways that you can adopt this. However, it is a hard smash for me. The next one may be a little bit controversial. AI generated product and fake UGC. Now, Atia and I were actually having a conversation about this. And they are two separate topics, but Donna gave them both to me. So I'm going to answer them both because Donna does her homework and we are going to value this. Overall, I'm going to say pass. And this is why. Whilst I can acknowledge that the AI generated product imagery is good, I still don't think that it's great. And my bigger concern is, again, wanting to give you an example of a great strategy to implement when I think that there are very few exceptions to where a few people have really nailed it. But overall, I can tell that you just told ChatGPT to do something and it kind of gives uncanny valley and it hasn't nailed it. I think that AI, and there are so many creative AI tools, there is a benefit to using AI with creativity. And we are going to continue to see that grow over the next couple years. But I do not believe that AI, and most people who are like pro AI adopters, it is not, the purpose of AI is to help provide pathways and help to streamline things, not to take away, in essence, the entire creative process. So I don't think that it's actionable for anybody. And if you are a smaller brand that is using AI imagery and you're having a lot of click through to your product, but you're not actually having conversion, I would actually start testing AI versus non-AI imagery because people don't always want the most polished product. A lot of times people want authenticity, and I think that we can still tell when something's inauthentic. Now, the fake UGC, there is, and I can't think of it, but there's actually currently an energy brand that's running a fake UGC ad. And it's funny because you can tell that it's fake UGC. And then like a couple seconds in, it shifts to the real person because it's basically that like this concept is bullshit and it's through the fake UGC, and then it flips to the real person. And so it kind of like validates trust at the end of it. And I find it a really fun, useful way. But aside from that, if you have a fake UGC post, I'm instantly going to assume that you're this like, it's always like weird herbs and supplements on TikTok, and they're trying to sell the story, and you can tell because like the face doesn't match the mouth. And it's, if you've seen them, maybe like my For You page, it's probably a little bit weirder than most people's, but like there's definitely a whole category of this fake UGC, and you can tell that it's fake UGC. The purpose of UGC is to build trust. A lot of people understand now that UGC is still an ad. So why are you going to combine UGC that people now understand is an ad with fake content? Like, two negatives in this sense definitely don't make a positive by any means. And again, I'm sure there are people that it has worked for. But if you are choosing where your money is going to go, that is not where I would choose to put my money. And it may cost you nothing to produce it, but you're going to be putting it into an ad manager. You're going to be putting it somewhere that then costs you money. So consider that. All right, here's our last one. So it's hiring micro creators in-house as content talent. So I 10,000% more than anything with this one. It is a smash. And that might seem a little bit controversial because here's a couple things. If they're in-house content creator talent, you probably have to pay them a slightly higher wage. However, they understand the market. They live on social media. They probably also understand a platform that you may not be that great at. And then on the flip side of it, if you're worried about, oh, but like, what if they leave? What if they get poached? That is actually something real that we have to live in every single day. So you should never hire or base your decisions on a scarcity mindset. And we are moving into an era of employee-generated content. People are going to know who your employees are if you are headed in that direction, and that's a positive thing. So at some point, we're going to see this person from this brand move to this brand, and everybody's going to know. And you know what? It's not really that big of a deal because this is where authenticity and transparency with your audiences is going to come into place. And like, sure, it could be messy and like someone leaves over something bad, but like, again, why make a decision because of a what if? Instead, enjoy someone for the 18 months, 2 years, 3 years that you've got them. Enjoy having their skill set, enjoying the fact that as their audience grows, people will also discover your brand and like have a great channel and adopt and like be one of the first brands to adopt a new strategy. I think Jazz Handmade has done this really well because all the girls there have either had accounts beforehand or their accounts have grown. And I love it because there's actually additional exposure for the brand through these creator accounts because they also live and breathe the brand because they work for the brand. So hire aligned people for your brand and you'll actually get an even higher reach just by default. So I don't think that there's any losing in that situation. Thank you for listening to my Smash or Pass. I hope you enjoyed it. That's something that if you have a concept or if you have any like things that you want me to chat about, like just message me because I think that is something that I am working on curating is like, what are we going to chat about? Because there's a lot of topics and I am a little bit too excited about everything. So I love comments and feedback and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen today. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed the first ever episode of If You Know You Grow the podcast.